Today's terrifying creepypasta story is being done in collaboration with a very talented human narrator over at FEAREDHorror. Check them out as they have many scary stories and more. I hope you enjoy.
This is too much for me to write. Maybe I'm just writing this for myself. Maybe if I write it down, I might actually believe everything that happened. Part of me still thinks that none of it was real. I had to question everything I know. Me, an extremely logical person, having to doubt the very reality we know and experience every day. Maybe after hearing this, whoever you are, you will too. Most people can't wait to go off to college. Everyone pretty much thinks it will be like a massive compilation of drinking and having sex. At least most high school kids who can't wait to get out there and live their life to the fullest tend to think so. For me, it wasn't like that. It was just an experience, something I would have to go through in order for my life to be where I wanted it to be. It didn't really matter to me if I would be partying all the time or not. My first year was pretty boring. I was very diligent with my studies, so I didn't really have any time to be cruising the bars and picking up girls. I had met a few nice people though, but no one was out of the ordinary. That wasn't until my second year. I got a roommate and my life got pretty interesting. His name was Zach, and he was nothing like the people I used to hang out with. Overall, he gave the impression of a hippie, but not in the snobby, repulsive way. He was a very warm person, and he was an enthusiast of life. Since I can remember, he had been lecturing me about how mistaken I was for staying home all the time and studying.
The world is waiting for you, dude.
He kept saying.
It won't wait forever.
I'll admit, he did convince me to try a lot of things I had never tried before, and just watching him live his life to the fullest had a very positive impact on mine. He would come home with a smile every day, telling me all about the new genre of music he had discovered, or a new martial art that he was learning, or all the customs and traditions of an amazing ancient race he was obsessed with that week. It gave me strength to think that it is possible for a person to be happy all of the time, to see life in a positive perspective, no matter how bad it got. I think the reason he was so at peace was because of his meditation. I always thought meditation was straight up nonsense, and every good effect that it had on your life was purely a placebo. But Zach was very passionate about meditating. He would meditate at least 2 hours a day, and he would always tell me about all the amazing things he experienced during his meditations. He would tell me he was flying with giant seagulls in the night sky, or that he was climbing palm trees with green monkeys on some kind of tropical island. Really, any crazy scenario that would be really cool in a movie, he probably lived it in his meditation. I never really took that part of Zach's life seriously, but every day he grew more and more excited about his meditation. He would tell me about the experience and how it got better and better, that he was able to see all the places he went a lot clearer than he used to. He claimed he was able to visualize himself under a waterfall and actually feel the water running down his body. He even said that after a point, he didn't even create the places he was going to. He would just open the door to the other world, and these places would create themselves, as if they were already there. I knew he was fooling himself, but if it helped him, there was really nothing wrong with that. That's what I used to think, although it did bum me out sometime when he went on and on about it. One day, he was bragging about how good he was getting, and he said he wanted to try and visit an unhappy place for a change, a darker world, just to see what it was like, or if it was even possible. I thought this was ridiculous. Isn't the whole point of meditation to feel at peace? Why would you willingly take your mind to a dark and unsafe place? Maybe he thought it would be some sort of adventure. He was always arrogant like that, willing to try the most insane stunts, just for the fun of it. I remember how hard I tried to convince him to cancel that bungee jumping trip, but he wouldn't listen. At least he was lucky enough to get out of these stunts without a scratch. Maybe he was born for danger. I could never understand it. Clearly, I wasn't the same. We had now lived together around 6 months, and we had gotten pretty close. It was the beginning of spring when it all began. I returned home one day from class, casually expecting Zach's joyful greeting. Instead, I heard nothing. I figured he must have been out, since he did that a lot. I turned on the TV and started to relax in the living room. After a couple of hours, he hadn't called or anything, so I thought I'd give him a call, just to make sure that he was okay. I called him, and suddenly I heard something that got me worried. It was his ringtone. It was coming from his room. What the hell? I thought. He never forgets his cell phone at home. I went into his room to find it. To what end, I don't even know. And when I walked in, I jumped in shock. There he was, sitting on the floor, on his meditation pillow with his eyes wide open. What the hell, man? You've been here the whole time? Why didn't you just say something? I said. He didn't respond. Zach? Again, there was no response. He was just sitting there quietly, like he did when he meditated, as if he hadn't noticed I was in the room. That had happened before, but this time his eyes were wide open. He had a blank and calm expression on his face. What was this? Some new level of meditation? Visualizing without having to close your eyes? I got closer. I started shaking him and calling his name. Loudly. Loud enough for anyone asleep to wake up. Still nothing. He didn't even flinch. His pulse was fine. He was just breathing steadily, but no reaction to my callings. This had to be one of his lame jokes. Fine, stay there, you zombie, I said. Just let me know when you plan to eat my brain. I thought if he was kidding, he would stop if I ignored him. It worked when my brother played tricks on me, like when we were kids. But it didn't. Night came and Zach was still sitting in that same spot. He hadn't moved an inch or even said a word. I got really nervous. I started shaking him like crazy, slapping him, shouting his name loud enough for the neighbors to think we were killing each other. I got so mad, I even punched him in the face, and his body fell to the side. That was the first time I saw him move. He simply picked himself up, albeit rather slow, but without ever changing that numb expression on his face, and he got himself right back into the same position. I decided to leave him alone for the night, and if the next day he was still like that, I would call the doctor. I barely slept that night. I couldn't help but imagine various supernatural explanations as to what was happening to Zach, but I tried to shake them all off, thinking it was probably some kind of mental illness. The next day, not to my surprise, he was still like that. I tried to contact him a little bit, but as I expected, it didn't work. That's it, I thought. I gotta call the doctor. I had to help him in any way possible. And if this was the only way, I was willing to go through with it. The moment I picked up my phone, I heard something behind me. It was like a silent growl. Low and consistent, but very intimidating. Like the sound a dog makes when he's threatened. I turned around and I saw Zach, standing there just outside the room, with that same expression on his face. That sound was coming from him. Zach? No response, just that threatening, continuous growl. I know what that sound meant. It gave the same feeling you get when you hear a cat hissing, or when you see a dog showing his teeth. It was a warning that I was doing something he wasn't happy with. I was utterly terrified, but an idiotic part of me wanted to confirm my feeling, so I did something I regret. I pressed a button on the phone. He charged at me. He let out a roar so heavy, so frightening, like the roar of a giant predator, and he came right at me. My reflexes worked so quickly that I jumped back on the couch and threw the phone to the other side of the room. When I threw it, he stopped. He didn't even look at me. During that entire intense charge and that hellish roar, his expression remained the same, cold and blank, not even looking at me. It was as if, and I didn't even want to think about it at the time, Zach wasn't the one who attacked me. After that, he went back to his room and sat in that same position. He knew I was calling the doctor, I thought. He knew, and he didn't like that. That means he knows I'm there. That means he can hear me, but he chooses not to interact with me. This is a mental illness. It has to be a mental illness. But as much as I tried to convince myself, deep down I knew that roar, no matter how insane one could be, it could not have been produced by a human. 2 days went by, and things only got worse. Anytime I reached for the phone or the door to go outside, I heard the growl. He didn't want me to tell anyone about him. He would threaten me every time I tried to contact another living soul. Even when I sat on my computer, the moment I tried to log in to any social site, that eerie growling would start. He hadn't eaten or drunk anything since I found him like that. His eye sockets were turning darker and his skin paler. His expression had also started to change from an expression of numbness to an expression of discomfort, as if he was sitting next to a very smelly person on the bus. Whatever I tried wouldn't work. Begging him to talk to me, saying I was willing to do anything to help him, but still nothing. Then I remembered something I was trying to avoid. He had said a few days ago that he wanted to meditate to a darker place. It sounded crazy, but what if he had done it? What if he went to a place that was so horrible it scarred him for life? Or worse, what if he's still there? I had googled many mental illnesses, and none of the symptoms seemed to match Zach's. I didn't want to let my mind go there, but it was the only explanation that tied up all the loose ends. Except from the fact that the meditation was crap to begin with. But what if I was wrong? Then my thoughts were distracted by a sound. It was a scratching sound coming from Zach's room. It sounded like a cat sharpening its claws on wooden furniture. My heart started pounding. I had to go see if he was okay. I slowly opened the door and looked inside, trembling with fear. And boy, was I right to tremble. Zach was sitting there, in that same position on the floor. Only this time, he was holding a pocket knife in his right hand, and he was carving on the wooden floor with great force. However, the chilling part was his expression. His face had turned red, sweating all over. Veins were popping out of his forehead. Overall, he looked like an athlete trying to lift a weight of 100 tons. I rushed to his side, asking him what was wrong, begging for him to let me help him, but he wouldn't answer. He just kept carving the floor and looking like he was being tortured. Then, I turned around and looked at what he was carving on the floor. I realized he was carving letters. When I saw what he had carved, my entire body went cold. He has my heart. I struggled for hours to try to comprehend what was happening and what I could do to fix it. I couldn't call for help, for Zach would attack me. I couldn't give him any medicine because I didn't know what the hell this disease was. And even if I knew, I doubt he would let me give him any meds. Everything was starting to point at the scenario my mind was trying to avoid. Something had taken control of Zach. He had gone to a place he wasn't supposed to go to, and he had paid for that mistake. But there is something I knew for sure. Whatever was inside Zach did not want me dead. It showed me it could have killed me at any time when it made Zach charge at me so violently. However, it never chose to attack me for no reason. Maybe it wanted something from me. maybe Zach was somehow preventing it from attacking me. Or maybe it wanted me for when it was done with Zach. I didn't even want to think about what it was doing to Zach, wherever he was. There were times when I thought I was being insane, that I had to stop all these crazy thoughts, but it was a part of me that knew they were true, like a survival instinct, telling me a predator was nearby, and that predator was disguised as my best friend. I was alive for a reason. I was supposed to do something. I knew what had to be done. I had to meditate. I had never meditated before in my life, but I had heard enough from Zach to know exactly what I had to do in theory. However, the experience is always different than the actual theory, so I was prepared to fail at least a couple of times. I went in my room, placed one of Zach's big pillows on the floor, and sat in the same yoga position that he was in. First of all, I tried to clear my mind and relax, which wasn't easy considering what I had witnessed and where I was planning to go. I tried a lot of techniques that Zach had told me, like visualizing 2 red balls of energy that would merge into one, or a candle that would emit a circular red aura behind its flame. After a while, I felt completely numb, as if my mind and my body were no longer connected. I was in the right track. The next thing I was supposed to do was to visualize the door that would take me to my safe place. But I knew that Zach was not at a safe place, so I had to visualize a door to a dark, mysterious realm. Now, on the one hand, I had no idea how that place looked, but on the other, neither did Zach, and he ended up there anyway. So there was a chance that if I just visualized myself heading to a dark place, I would manage to go where Zach had gone. I started to see a gray door, and I was slowly getting closer to it. I wasn't sure if I was doing it right, until I heard the whispers. I couldn't make them out at first. They were high-pitched and they sounded as if they were produced by 1,000 people. But it felt as if, or at least to my instincts felt as if, they were trying to lure me closer. I had to trust my instincts. They were the only weapon I had to help my friend. I went closer, and the door opened by itself as the whispers were getting louder. I walked into the darkness within. My eyes opened by themselves. For a moment I thought I had failed, since I had woken up, but after a few seconds I knew I had succeeded. I was in my room, but it was different. Everything was darker, and the entire environment was in a dark blue color. There was a blue light coming from my window, even though it was night when I started meditating. I tried standing up, but it took more strength from me than it usually does. Even taking a few steps felt new, as if I was learning to swim. I walked into the living room. My footsteps echoed so deeply. It was like I was walking at the bottom of the ocean. The blue shades that surrounded me sure made it feel that way. I thought I could hear very faint whispers as I was heading into Zach's room. For a second, I even thought I heard the laughter of a child. I turned the knob and expected the worst as I was walking into Zach's room. It was exactly like mine. Everything was dark blue, like I was in a fish tank. Zach wasn't there, and also missing was the strange carving on the floor that he had made earlier. But on the wall next to his bed, there was something that was not in the room I knew. It was a black door. That was the place I had to go. My instincts were shouting to walk away from that. My instincts were shouting at me to walk away from that door. That's how I knew I had to cross it. I would not let my friends suffer in there alone. I gathered all the courage I could and opened the door. And inside I saw darkness. Only darkness. Not even the floor of the adjacent room was visible. Maybe there was no floor. Maybe I was about to walk into a bottomless pit. Whatever awaited for me in the darkness, I had to find out. For the sake of my friend, I stepped forward into the void. For a minute, it seemed like I had lost my senses. When I opened my eyes, it felt as if I had woken up from a 1,000-year-long sleep. I was in a hallway. It was dark, like the dark atmosphere in my home. But instead of blue, everything here was in shades of red. Dark, threatening red, like the rooms photographers used to develop pictures. The hallway was narrow, and the walls were made of a disgusting material. It looked like wet sponges, but after some consideration, I figured it also resembled torn flesh. On both sides of the hallway were dark red doors, and overall it was very dark. I could not see what was in the end of the hallway. There was no window, lamp, or any light source whatsoever, so I could not figure out where that dark red light that enabled me to see was coming from. This place felt different. The place I was before, my home, was mysterious and maybe unsettling, but not like this one. This place was emitting an incredibly threatening aura. It made me feel that something did not want me to be there, or the far worse scenario, that something did want me. Nevertheless, the fact that my senses were screaming at me to get the hell out of this place was my way of knowing I was on the right track. The door of darkness I walked through was still open behind me, so my plan was to find Zach and get him back to the door as quickly as I could. I started to walk across the hallway, and I pressed my ear on the first door I walked past. I heard nothing, so I tried turning the knob. The second I touched it, I heard a loud breath from inside, as if someone had just woken up. It terrified me, but I had to try, so I spoke. Hello? I said reluctantly. For a few seconds I heard nothing, but then...
Who's there?
It was a man's voice. It didn't resemble Zach's at all, but it sounded terrified, like he knew to expect the worst when someone knocked on his door. I'm sorry, I don't mean any harm. I'm just looking for my friend. Can you help me? Again, there was silence for a few seconds, but then the door slowly opened. Inside was a small pitch-black room, with a small red candle burning in the middle. There was no furniture or windows, just a candle on the floor, and I could faintly see in the back of the room a figure of a man curled up in the corner. It was too dark to make out any of his features. Can you help me? I tried, hoping to get a response.
You shouldn't be here.
He sounded old and extremely tired. I'm looking for my friend. I think something took him and is keeping him here against his will.
You think right, but you still shouldn't be here,
he said. He was really creeping me out, but at least he confirmed that I was right. I have to save him, I said. I won't leave here without him. Can you please help me?
Help you? No one can help you now.
Why? Why won't you help me? What is this place?
This place is proof that humans can be as stupid as to destroy their own lives just to try something exciting,
he said, and I sensed he was starting to get a bit angry.
We all came here by choice, because we were fools. He did not seek us out. He did not hunt us. We came right into his arms. And why? Because why not?
He said, screaming the last two words. After a pause, he continued.
Because some people are so irresponsible, they would try anything. Because deep down, they don't believe it can hurt them. But it can. Oh, believe me, we learned that much.
I noticed he was doing something to his left arm with his right one. It looked like he was scratching it, but he was doing it rather intensely.
We all deserve to be here. There's no salvation for your friend. He came here by choice, and now he's become his latest toy. And he deserves it, like all of us.
I took a breath and asked the question I was dreading. Okay, who is he? and after some silence, he answered,
I hope you never have to know. Now leave me in peace, and do not disturb the others. Just turn around and walk away.
This man was obviously a prisoner. I felt horrible thinking that there were so many people who had made the same mistake as Zach. And for a moment, I thought about trying to save him too, but I knew I was already in over my head. There was no guarantee I would manage to save my best friend, let alone other people. Zach was a priority. I left and closed the door behind me. I continued walking down the hallway, not minding the other doors, figuring there were more prisoners in them. I knew Zach might have been a prisoner too, but the man mentioned Zach had become his latest toy, whoever he was. I figured maybe Zach was with him. Maybe I could find Zach by finding him. I walked past countless doors, hearing extremely unsettling noises from inside them, including screams and paranoid laughter. I didn't even want to imagine what all these people were going through. Finally, I made it to the end of the hallway. Before me was a huge door. It looked like it was made of wax, but there were shapes on it, and those shapes made me want to vomit. They were human parts, hands, legs, spines, even complete faces were carved like sculptures on the wax door. They were so realistic, especially the expressions on the faces, complete and utter despair. I took a step closer, holding my breath, knowing that this was the place I was looking for. The door opened on its own. This room was different than the others. I could barely see, because there was a vivid red light flickering on and off constantly. The room was dead silent, and the only thing I could hear were my footsteps stepping on something crunchy. I looked at the floor and tried to make out what I was stepping on in the darkness. My heart froze. I could barely see them, but they were everywhere. Bones. I was cracking them with my footsteps. They were all over the floor. What in God's name had happened in this place? I walked in a little closer. Since the room appeared to be huge, I wanted to make as little noise as possible, since I had no idea who was in there with me. Then I saw it, and I regretted every step I had taken closer to this place. I regretted not taking all the opportunities I had to get the hell out of here. I could barely see it, but it was standing at the left corner, its figure flickering along with the red light. It was twice as tall as me. Its skin made it look like a dehydrated corpse. You could see all the bones in its body. Its arms and legs were extremely long, with the arms reaching all the way to its feet. I couldn't see its face. It had dark, wet hair covering it, falling on its body, down to its waist. It wasn't moving. It was just standing there in a bizarre position, its right hand reaching to the wall at its back, and its left hand reaching for something to its left. It didn't look like it was even breathing. It looked so weak, but so terrifying. That had to be him. Maybe he hadn't noticed me. Maybe he was asleep. I was trying not to move a muscle, not taking my eyes off him for a second. And then I heard a whisper from the other side of the room.
Who's there?
I knew that voice. It was Zach. I had found him. Zach?
Ian, is that you?
Yeah, I came to get you. Where are you?
Over here, to the right.
I looked and I managed to make out his figure. He was curled up in a ball in the corner. Come on, let's get out of here, I whispered.
I can't walk,
he answered.
That's why I tried to send you a message. I can't move my body in here. He's almost sucked out all of my energy. You have to get me out of here, please.
Okay, I'm coming. I tried to walk as fast as I could without making any noise, always keeping my eyes on that creature. My heart was beating like crazy. He wasn't moving a muscle. There was a part of me that wanted to believe he hadn't noticed me. but I felt like he knew I was there from the very first step I took into that darkness. Each step I took, I thought, he's gonna strike now. He's gonna strike now. There's no way he'll ever let me get to Zach. But nothing happened. I actually made it to Zach without that creature moving at all. I grabbed Zach and tried to pull him up.
Ouch, be careful,
he said. I looked at him. You could barely see him through the flickering red light, but he was pretty badly hurt. Huge pieces of flesh were missing from all over his body. It was like someone was skinning him alive, bit by bit, every day. There was one particular wound on his cheek that made vomit come to my mouth, because his teeth were visible from the inside. But there was no time to feel sorry for him. I picked him up with all my strength, placing his arm around my neck and holding him from the waist. We were so close. We started walking, and I looked back to see the sleeping creature. My spine went completely numb. He was gone.
Ian, why did you stop?
Zach asked. He wasn't there. He was awake. He knew all along. Where did he go? What was he trying to do? My mind was raging when I heard the growl. That same growl Zach had made when I tried to call the doctor. It was coming from behind me. I looked at my friend in terror. He looked twice as terrified as me, and uttered one word.
Run.
That moment, I heard him scream and felt him slipping away from my arms in an instant. I tried to see through the vivid light. Zach was on the floor, screaming. A hand was grabbing his right ankle and pulling him. A long, lifeless, skinny hand. I acted as quickly as I could. I grabbed a bone off the floor, a broken arm of some sort, and I violently jammed it into the fiend's hand. He instantly let go of Zach's foot, and we heard the roar Zach had made when he tried to attack me. That demonic roar that would make even the fiercest predator bow down, begging for mercy. I picked up Zach as quickly as I could, and I bolted for the exit. We actually managed to escape the room, and started running down the red hallway.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
He was whispering. Dude, save it for when we get home, I said while running. We were almost out of the door of darkness. I had managed to save my friend. Hope sprung inside me as we were getting closer to salvation. Then, something pulled my hair. It was grasping me violently, and I heard that fiend's roar. I felt like I was looking death right in the eyes. Zach reacted immediately and grabbed my arms, trying to pull me away from him. I could tell he was using every little strength he had.
No, let him go.
But it wasn't enough. I could tell what was going to happen if Zach kept pulling. He would take us both. I knew what I had to do. I gathered all the strength I had, and I kicked Zach as hard as I could in the chest. Zach fell in the door of darkness as the fiend kept pulling me away from him. I could see him falling into the darkness as he screamed.
Ian, no.
And that was the last time I saw him. In the end, I managed to save my friend. What happened to me next, it's best for your sake that you don't know. I've been here for a while, and I managed to stay alive no matter what he did to me. I don't think I will ever escape, but I think I've figured out what he wants. I think he's trying to steal someone's soul so that he can cross over to our world. Everyone here has managed to resist him, resulting to their deaths. That's how this place is growing bigger. He's using his victims, their very flesh and bone, to make this dimension grow. Somehow, I managed to discover this humble piece of paper and this pencil. Maybe it was some kind of miracle. What I'm hoping to do is try to send the paper to our world, using some kind of meditation technique. I'll just keep trying as long as I can still stand. If somehow this does get through to someone, I just want you to know this. There is something trying to get us, all of us, and maybe the day will come when it succeeds. If that day comes, I really, truly hope there's someone out there who knows the truth.